Welcome back. And in these video lectures, we want to talk about strings. Now, we've worked with characters, right? Single symbols from the ASCII table. Now, quite often, we're going to want to deal with entire words or sentences or paragraphs even, right? And C gives us a way of working with those longer lists of characters. We're going to call them strings. Now, there's a couple of different ways of telling the compiler you're working with a string. Okay, you don't have to call them string the way I have, but you can pick a name that you want, right? So usually you say character or unsigned character because they'll all be unsigned characters. And they look an awful lot like arrays, right? So string 1 looks like an array. And we can add elements to it just as if it was an array. But the one thing that makes a string different from an array of characters is this final symbol put in here. This is a null. It's 0 in the ASCII table. It's the very first element. This is a way to write in octal the members of the ASCII table. So backslash up to 3 octal numbers, octal being base 8. Right? So this is the very first one. Okay. If I wanted, I could just do that. Right? It's 0. Okay. But to keep it similar to the other symbols we're using, oops, I'll do that. Okay, so this is a character string, and it has a terminator, this 0 here, okay? And because of this extra term, the length of a string is always one more than the characters you've listed, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Its actual length is 6, right here. Here is an array. Unimaginatively, I've called it array. It looks almost identical. It just doesn't have this 0 at the end of it. Here's string 2. Okay? Right here inside the quotes is what's called a string constant, a string of symbols. When you let a string variable equal a string constant like this, the compiler automatically knows that there's a null added after the 5. Right? So the length of this string is identical to the length of string 1. They're the same string, right? And they have 6 characters in it. Now your strings can be bigger than the number of characters you assign at the beginning, right? So here I put hello world. That's only about 10 or 11 letters, right? But I've set room for 50. That means 49 characters plus null, right? So I can leave room, and usually you leave room if you're going to add more to that string later. You don't have to add anything to a string. So I've got this blank string here, nothing in here at all. So that's fine as well. Okay, so let's compile this and see what we get when we look at what we have here. Okay, so that's compiled. Almost compiled. Almost loaded onto the pic. It'll happen soon. Okay, so let's look at this code here. So this program just starts by saying, clear the screen, wait to enter. Now, you can print strings out several different ways. There's this string format specifier, right? And it says, after this formatting string, look for a string variable. So whatever string 1 was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here, it'll print that out. Notice that I don't have to put in the brackets or bracket 6 here. As a matter of fact, If you did put in the bracket 6, that would be a mistake, because then it thinks it's asking you to look, that it is being asked to print the 6th element of the string. So no brackets whatsoever. So that's one way of doing it. Or you can just print the string, just like this in printf. Okay? That's equivalent to quotes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quotes. We've done things like that before, no problem. The only thing with doing it that way is that there's no new line. So I've had to print a new line as well. Or, because these guys are an awful lot like arrays, you work with them one by one. So you can print them out one character by one character. Don't try to print the null, right? So 0 to 5, right? Not 0 to 6. Let's have a look what we get when we hit enter here. Okay, so here was our string 1, right? Me printing it out 3 different ways, and it all looks essentially the same. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at is to reiterate that just like arrays, you work on strings one by one. So in this little subroutine here, in this for loop, right, I'm taking string 2, and each element to string 2, I'm adding 3 to it. So we're just taking the 3rd character up from whatever the characters we had before. So let's see what we get when we do that. Hit enter. Okay, so the 3rd character up from 1 would be 4, then 5, 6, 7, 8. So all we've changed is the symbols. Remember, these digits are not numbers, they're the symbols for numbers. That's it for now.